Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Granbury will now come to order at 6 p.m. on Monday, March 11th, 2024, Granbury City Hall, City Council Chambers. The first item on the agenda tonight is public comments on agenda items that are non-public hearing agenda items. Do we have any speaker cards? No? Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda. On the consent agenda is approval of the regular meeting minutes from February the 12th, 2024. Do I have any changes or additions? No? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Motion approved.
I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented by Mr. Erdman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hafes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Going on to D, public hearings. We're going to rearrange some things. We're going to move D1 to the end and proceed with D2 and then D3. So the first item on the agenda is going to be D2 tonight. Consider a request of Shane Flippin to 1, amend the future land use map contained within the 2016 comprehensive plan from low-density residential to retail office, and 2, rezone from R10 residential district to BC business commercial district. The property is located at 1610 West Pearl Street. Cody?
Good evening, Ms. Chair and Commission. This property, like she said, is at 1610 West Pearl. It is platted as Lot 1, Block 2 of the Cherry Lane addition, and there is request to rezone it from R10 residential to BC business commercial. This is currently what it sits like in the surrounding area. And this is the future land use. What it's currently looked at is low density residential. So this is the zoning ordinance for the future land use considerations by P&Z. Just some questions to think of over and look at the response that staff has prepared for that. And based on the retail office land use for the future land use, there should be no negative impact on the adjacent residential areas. The use of the site would be compatible with the residential uses nearby. And they're similar to the proposed land use designation in the area with the city park and other government facilities for the county around that area, with some commercial across the street. And this is the zoning consideration questions for P&Z to look at. On February 25th, city staff mailed out 12 public notices to the property owners within 200 feet of the municipal tax roll, and notice was also published in the Hood County newspaper on February 24th. As of now, we have had no writings or letters in for or against. Staff recommends approval of the future land use amendment, and staff recommends approval of the zoning change from R10 residential to BC business commercial. And the voting options for tonight are not an SUP, but recommend approval of the future land use amendment or recommend denial of future land use amendment, recommend approval of the zoning change, or recommend denial of the zoning change.
Thank you, Cody. I'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here, or so would you like to speak?
Yes, ma'am.
If you'll come to the podium, and I think you need us, if you'll also, there'll be a button to turn it on when you speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shane Flippin. I probably have met most of you or half of you here and there. I'm a small business owner. My company is Flippin Custom Homes. My plan is to put an office space on there for myself. If I can fit it and it fits in correct, if there's enough room after I put in the landscaping, the allowance that I have to accommodate with the city, I might put in a 600 square foot office next door to me that I would lease out to either probably attorney or something like that. It'd be office space, but primarily at this point I just want specifically office space for myself to put in my custom home building. There won't be any storage. I've got a storage unit complex that I use, that I rent out, but I use it personally too. So the question was presented to me when I guess I came to a meeting last month if I was going to use it for any kind of storage, and I would not be storing anything there. It would specifically be showroom, office for me and superintendents, available parking for customers that come in and sit down, or clients that come in and sit down and go over plans with me. That's pretty much all I want to put there. Nothing else. It's not going to be a store, or restaurant, or I won't be selling anything out of there other than my business.
Any questions for the applicant, commission members? Any questions for staff? Thank you, Mr. Flippin.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion first on the request for change of the future land use plan, the 2016 comp plan.
Chair, I'll move to approve the future land use amendment as presented.
Have a motion by Mr. Hafes to approve the land use change as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now, gentlemen, if I can entertain a motion on the rezoning request, please.
Chair, I move to approve the zoning change as presented.
Have a motion by Mr. Hafes to approve the zoning change as presented, and a second.
Second.
By Mr. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Next item agenda tonight is D3. Consider the request of Granbury 491 LLC to amend the planned development heavy commercial PDHC district adopted ordinance 23-83. The property is addressed as 1380 East Highway 377. Cody?
So this property is the little sliver right there. It's platted as Lot 1R3, Block 1 of the Percy Kristen Edition, and it is going to be developed as a retail location, specifically for Scooters Coffee. It is a PD plan development, and there is an amendment for it tonight. The applicant proposes to amend the existing plan development for the purpose of modifying pad number 2, located on the northwest corner of Harbor Lakes and 377. This is to develop a drive-through coffee shop and modify the pad layout that was previously presented. So after this was brought to y'all in October of 23, new information affecting the site and the drive was going to be an issue. Access to and through the property adjacent to it to the west was not going to be allowed. Therefore, they had to loop their drive-through within their own property and exit back out onto Harbor Lakes. This is what the new site plan is going to look like. It comes in on the north side of Harbor Lakes, comes in around the building and back out through the same entrance exit. And with the site redevelopment, there is a little bit of change to the landscape plan. And actually all trees are staying there. There's still 12 trees. They're just moved to different locations within the property. On February 29th, city staff mailed out 9 public notices to all property owners within 200 feet of the municipal tax roll. And it was also placed in the Hood County newspaper on February 24th. At this time, we've had 0 letters in response for or against. Staff recommends approval of the request to amend the existing plan development heavy commercial zoning subject to the PD standards and conditions in the attached ordinance exhibit. Voting options for tonight: recommend approval of the amendment or recommend denial of the amendment.
Thank you, Cody. I'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? And if so, would you like to speak? P&Z members, anybody have questions for the applicant? No? Okay. Any questions for staff? No? All right. Then I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion on the amendment requested by the applicant.
Chair, I move to approve the amendment as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Hafes to approve the amendment as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
It's Mr. Hallman, by the way.
Did I call you? Okay, so corrections in the minutes. The last two have been seconded by Mr. Hallman. Oh, my gosh. Ah, did I call you Randy both times? Oh, geez. It's those three kids I'm keeping this week. All right. The next item on the agenda is going back to D1. Consider the request of the City of Granbury to amend select sections of the City of Granbury zoning ordinance, Article 1, General Provisions, Article 2, Administration, Article 3, Nonconformities, Article 4, Permitted Uses, Article 5, District, Article 6, Special Districts, Article 7, Sign Requirements, Article 8, Landscapes Requirements, Article 9, Wireless Antenna Facility Regulations, Article 11, Supplementary District Regulations, Article 12, General Definitions, Article 13, Tree Preservation Requirements, Article 14, Drilling Regulations, Oil and Gas Production. The general purpose is for consolidation of requirements, ease of implementation, readability, and usability of the regulatory document related to landscaping. Cody or Craig?
Craig.
Craig?
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, my name is Craig Farmer. I'm with Municipal Planning Services, LLC. You have before you, do you have the clicker thing? Oh, you can do it? That's fine with me. No, you got it. Okay. I don't trust myself. So the first item that you're doing is you're amending the zoning ordinance, and it talks about various different sections. If you'll look in the packet, almost everything you're seeing is being removed from the zoning ordinance and transferred to Article 3.22 in the plating ordinance. So I don't think there will be any questions on the zoning part of it. It's a whole bunch of red lines of what's being removed. And all that's being left is coordination clauses at various points saying, see Article 3.22, buildings, see Article 3.22 buildings. There were quite a few places that reference it, including each one of the zoning districts. So we put a cross-reference on each zoning district saying instead of see the Article 8 and 13, it says see Article 3.22, buildings and landscaping. So with that, I'm going to jump into the changes that have been made in the draft. I chose to put in the PowerPoint just the changes we discussed at the last meeting, and I was going to show you what we've done to meet those changes.
Hey, Craig, can you, obviously when you strike through something, but can you also explain the red and the purple ink?
Sure. There's a little bit of combination of track changes that are on, and purple is items that the staff just, I put it in purple because they'd seen the red, but they hadn't seen the purple yet. So between the two of them, it covered it, okay? So with that, the first item, and I put the page numbers in here too, so page number 10 of the landscaping items is the first major change. And let me get to that page real quick. The page numbers at the bottom of yours don't relate. Okay, I'll jump real quickly. It's 3.22.5. So it's past the landscaping requirements. So it would be on, well, it's page 10 and the script at page 22 in your packet. And what we did in this particular section, pardon me for a second, I have trouble reading it from here. What we talked in this one, item C there, this is the change. We clarified that, and it says a minimum of 10% of the landscaped area in front of the buildings along the street, and it goes on to say that the frontages of structures along a side street or a rear street also have to be landscaped 10%. It was confusing, the wording we had last time, because it was talking about 10% of the total required area. And then it went on to say that if you had a nice plan, you could delete the landscaping on the side and the rear. So there's no requirement now for landscaping on the side or the rear unless there's a street and you can see it. So any questions on that particular part? Okay, next slide, please. And so this should be same general section. Oh, this is on the irrigation system, so I believe that's number 9. Is that D? I'm trying to see. D, thank you. So this is a change from what you saw last time. Irrigation systems and hose bibs must be installed in accordance with the adopted building and plumbing codes of the city. And that the homeowners, individual homeowners may install their own irrigation systems in accordance with city codes, provided they obtain a permit and submit plans. So this is an addition. Last time the question was asked. It turned out that nowhere in here did it say the homeowner could install it. It did say that there was some confusion about whether the homeowner could design it, so we made it clear that the homeowner can install it in accordance with the building codes. So any question on that one? Okay, next slide, please. And this is item number 8, non-conforming signs. Did I miss something? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, paragraph number 10, which would be at the top of page 24 in your page 24 in your packet. Non-conforming sites. This was very confusing. And so we clarified it. We removed a bunch of buffering information that was in the wrong section. And basically what we say here is sites that were developed prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance and don't comply with the requirements of this article and are considered non-conforming have to comply with the non-conforming section. So it just takes it to that and includes parking and other things. So that references the non-conforming section that we'll talk about in a little bit, clarified that. But that was a pretty good sized change there. So next slide, please. So this should be number 8, and this one's at the top, page 13. There's some discussion about the homeowners association and what they could require and not require. We added this item E here, basically paraphrased the statute and said that there are certain things the HOAs and restricted covenants could do, which included encouraging or requiring water conserving turf, regulate the installation of efficient irrigation systems, regulate the installation or use of gravel, rocks, or cactus, and regulate the location and construction of composting devices. And then we went on to say, or anything that in Texas Property Code 202.007 as amended would allow, to make sure that it cross-referenced. And I had discussed it with Jeremy at the end of the last meeting, the city attorney, and he said a coordination clause like that should cover it. So any questions on those changes? Okay, next slide, please. And this one is 3.227, and it relates to the paragraph number 2. Again, in the requirement section, there was a requirement for the side and in industrial areas, side and rear yard landscaping, and it cross-references. This basically is the same information, except at the bottom, the landscaping of rear and side yard areas along the street may be waived upon submittal of a landscape plan showing screening from a roadway, and provided the right-of-way is landscaped and meeting all other requirements. So a screening fence, some kind of screening could be used in lieu of landscaping, but the remaining 10 feet or so could be would have to be landscaped. Any questions on that? Okay, next slide, please. This is the landscaped area credit. Some of these changes we talked about at the last meeting. Some of them I visited with staff, and we decided to recommend these changes. You have a brand new table compared to the old one that was very confusing and hard to deal with. What we're basically saying is you get a credit against your required square footage of landscaping for each existing 6-inch or larger tree on the approved tree list that is protected and kept. You get an additional 800 square feet. So there is an incentive to save a tree, no requirement, but there is an incentive to save a tree. We added a new one that for each 3-inch caliper, DBH, or larger tree on the approved tree list that is designated as water conserving or drought tolerant, you get an additional 200 square feet. So some trees use a lot more water than others, and that's why we included it. We did fix the table of the approved tree list And in it, there are asterisks on certain trees and certain types of shrubs that are drought tolerant. So that is incorporated in there, so that is covered. And then finally, for each square foot of landscape right-of-way, you get 1 square foot of credit for each square foot you landscape. That is, we basically doubled the old one. The old one was you got 0.5 square feet of credit. Our feeling was that if you're required to landscape the right-of-way anyway, you might as well be able to count it in your landscaping requirements. So that's why that's there. And plus, it was confusing on the calculations. Now you just add up the total square footage of landscaping, including the right-of-way, and it makes the calculations a lot easier. Any questions on that one? Okay.
Just curious.
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you get your list of drought tolerant? Does the Ag Service or
It's
somebody
the
put out?
original one that was in the ordinance, and we intend to go ahead and, this is probably a good point to mention this, as time goes on, we'll find things that need amending or changing, because you don't make this many radical changes. And so we'll plan on coming back every so often with amendments. Some places we may be too loose and need to tighten a little bit. Some places may be still too tight and may need to loosen a little bit. The staff is intending to try to get with the Texas A&M Extension Service, I believe is the one that handles trees.
Okay.
Plus, they've given it to their Parks Department, and the Parks Department may be as good arborists as you have here in
Yeah, just in practice,
Granbury.
what's
Yes,
really
ma'am.
happening.
What's
Okay.
really going on. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. What does that say? I'm sorry. 3.22.10. This is, again, the landscaping in the right-of-way. It's that paragraph number 1. And, again, it's saying you get 1 square foot for each square foot landscape. So that was the follow-up on that other change in the calculations. Next slide, please. So the parking area requirements, which is 3.22.11, and it's the paragraph, I think is that 3? I believe it's 3. Yeah, parking lot shade trees. We highlighted and made sure, I like ordinances where you can find things real easily, so we put the captions on individual paragraphs. And then items 2 through 4, if you recall at the last meeting, I said I couldn't find anywhere where it said you had to put 1 tree or a number of trees in each island. There was a requirement that for a certain number of parking spaces, you had to have a certain number of trees, but it didn't say where they needed to go. So we made sure that was clear. And then B, half of the required trees may be replaced along the perimeter of the parking lot, provided the tree crown overhangs the parking lot and provides shade and cooling. If I could get you to advance 1 slide, and then we'll come back. Oh, advance another one to that one right there. So around the perimeter of the parking lot, you can count those trees as meeting this requirement, provided the tree overhangs the parking lot. Now, quite obviously, just a few little limbs could be an issue, or not overhanging the parking lot. So we say that up to half of the trees can be placed around the perimeter. The building inspection department and code enforcement said they've had a hard time getting people to maintain the trees in the islands, whereas we feel like around the perimeter you'll have a better chance of getting that done. So C allows that to be counted towards the landscaping requirements. And then D is, go back one now, was in lieu of shade trees, and this was Scottsdale, or go back to your picture. There's places around the country, Arizona and other places, that rather than trees have started allowing awnings for shade on the parking areas. And there is some support for that, because you've got a car that's in the shade, and so your customers like it better. Plus, it takes care of the heat and hailstorms and other things. So we are allowing that the chief building official or director of community development to allow these, in lieu of shade trees, these awnings, either permanent or with permanent replaceable awning fabric, which means the support system's permanent. Every so often, like you see them at the car dealerships, they have to replace the fabric. So that is something we did not discuss at the last meeting. But staff has had some experience in Arizona, and we did some searching, and it appears that is a solution. Now, we didn't talk about in lieu of how many trees, but it is up to the Director of Community Development or the building official to approve them, so I would assume they're not going to approve them in lieu of all trees. So any questions or comments on that? Okay, next slide, please. So this is talking about the, again, this is on top page 18. This is referring to your parking lot landscaping requirements. Can you see the numbers on that? I'm sorry, that's B through E, I believe. Let me look at this real quick. Yes, okay. Sorry, so we clarified, and if you go one more and show the map again. Okay, it's more important to have the landscaping in the end caps along the aisles than it is, halfway down between, in the rows of parking. There's two reasons for that. One is that the end cap actually defines the travel ways and the aisles and the entrance magazines and things, so that helps there. Plus, we're encouraging trees to be placed in the end caps, because what tends to happen is late at night when nobody's around, people start driving across parking lots and doing crazy things, and the trees tend to define those islands, and you can see them. So, so we're recommending that the end caps be encouraged and the trees be placed in the end caps. But now we've also said that you can combine islands to make bigger end caps, or to provide adequate space for the drip lines of bigger trees. And then currently you have to have an island every 12 spaces. You can't have more than 12 spaces with an island. So if you have 20 spaces in a run, and we define a run, it's over on that right-hand side of the image there, as being one long single run of parking spaces. You can't have more than 12 without breaking it up with an island of some sort. The grouping, there's some confusion, and that's why we made sure that the graphic shows it correctly. The groupings was a maximum of 20 parking spaces, and we thought that was a little much. We thought it should be more than that, because if you can put 12 in a single row, why can't you put 24 in a double row without having to break it? Plus, it makes the calculations easier, so we converted it to 24 parking spaces in a grouping. And then it does allow the flexibility of, like I said, moving some of those islands around to be more at the end caps, or in the case of the, I think it's the next slide, I believe. Yes. This item, this is number 3 under H, that landscaped areas, currently under your ordinance, it says landscaped areas along the outside perimeter of the parking lot can't be used to meet the requirements. And if you'll show that next slide, all those green areas there are typically landscaped areas that intrude into the parking lot, and most cities do count those. So, and you want to encourage them. So in the top part, you can see those 2 blocks of green there. Those areas that can't be used for parking because, for maneuvering purposes. And you want those landscapes, so we felt like it should be counted towards the landscaping required in the parking lot, and the landscaping overall. So any questions on all that? Okay. So the next slide, please, gets us into, I believe, non-conforming landscaping. Yes, it does. And 3.22.12, paragraph 1. We basically paraphrased zoning, and we talked about if you have a parcel that had landscaping or the lack thereof that was legal at one point in time and the rules changed on you, then you're considered non-conforming. And then it talks about the property rights of the person and not forcing someone to landscape unless there was a significant change in the property, which got us to paragraph 4, if you'll move to paragraph 4. And by the way, all that red stuff is new, so paragraph 2 is brand new. In paragraph 4, we said parking lots with non-conforming landscaping, and this is already a new concept, but we said you could expand it up to a maximum of 10% of the total landscaping. And then 50%, without having to do anything, if you expanded the parking lot up to 50%, you had to landscape, to provide enough square footage to meet the landscaping for the additional parking. And then once you're over 50% of an expansion of a parking lot, which is basically adding more than 100%, you would have to meet the requirements of the landscaping and the tree ordinance. But we did go on further to add a couple of additional paragraphs that the Director of Community Development could alter the irrigation requirements of existing parking areas, as well as the trees and some of those kinds of things. One of the big issues that we heard here was that if someone takes over an existing building or business and wants to expand the parking lot or expand the business, they had to meet the requirements, including tearing up the parking lot to put the underground irrigation in. So this is allowing a non-conforming parcel that doesn't conform entirely to your landscaping to install landscaped islands and other things, but not have to tear it up to put in irrigation systems. In other words, put in xeriscape or some other method of watering those areas, including reducing the number of trees. And that was another complaint, was the tree requirement was onerous if you were trying to utilize an existing property or building that was non-conforming. So those same rules apply to the other ones, uses of land and structures. So is there any questions about that? Okay. So the next one, somebody's really pushing me here. 22.14 is the landscaping and irrigation section. There was quite a bit of question about who could do it, and on the top, on page 22, which is page 34 in the packet, if you come down to item 4 there, it says, no, that's not the one. Where is it? Oh, I'm sorry, 6. I couldn't read it that far away. Sorry about that. The irrigation plan should be prepared by a licensed irrigator or other qualified professional acceptable to the Director of Community Development or the Chief Building Official, subject to state license requirements. Goes on to say individual homeowners can design their own system in accordance with city codes, provided they obtain the permit and provide sufficient information and plans. I think that covers the issues that came up at the last meeting on homeowners doing their own work. Again, it's only a homeowner that can do their own work. So if I own rental properties or if I own an apartment complex, I can't do that work under the codes. And again, it references back to the building codes and plumbing codes. But only the licensed irrigator or the licensed plumber can do that sort of work. So, but if I'm a homeowner and it's my own home, then I can do the work and I can design the work and turn the plans in. Okay? We're getting close, I think. Next one. Oh, on the next page, you see the approved tree list on page 35 there. It's not shown up above. There was a couple weird things going on. The common name was on both sides in some of the copies I saw. So, and there was a reference by the editor of the codification service that some of these trees were repeat names. Well, it turned out one column is the common name and the other column is the scientific name. And in terms of trees, a lot of the trees have the same name, but when you get down to shrubs and ornamentals, it's you know, the names, the scientific name is totally different than the actual name that's commonly used. And you'll see, looking at if you look at those charts, you'll see the asterisks on the ones that are water tolerant or water conserving. That brings us to tree planting credits, which would be, and we went over all the tree survey is optional. If it's needed to show protected trees are going to be counted, it may be required, but it's not required in all situations. We on 3.22.21, we spent quite a bit of time pulling together all the different requirements from different sections of the ordinance and put it in one place to talk about tree protection, planting, and maintenance requirements, so that it's all, as I said, in one place. This last one here is on page, in your document, page 44 on the document. It's 32 in the script at the bottom of the document. This is tree planting credit purchases, and we talked about removing this, but you might have a situation where someone just doesn't want to plant as many trees, or for some physical reason wants to not have to plant them, and they can purchase tree credits by putting money in a tree fund for the city. And so we left that in there. We did remove references to they had to do it before plats were filed. There's about 3 places in this ordinance that said you had to comply with everything before the plat was recorded. Well, typically when a plat's recorded, you're just you divided up the land and you're selling it, so the landscaping doesn't kick in at that point, so people will not have bought tree credits. So this ties it back down to actual building permits. Before you can get a building permit, you have the option, if it's been onerous on some of these trees, you can pay $300, and we said $375 per required tree. The old wording is $125 per caliper inch, and so we just said, well, we'll just make it a flat $375 per tree, and since 3 inches is the minimum, and go with that. So it's in there, it's an option. We don't know how much it'll be used, but it might be used. So. And then the tree fund is created, and that one's in there too. Now, the tree fund is actually in the old ordinance, and we just left it. So,
Craig, I think you took out a few too many words there.
oh, good. What'd you catch?
It now reads, funds shall be collected by the city, issuance of any permit. I think you need the words prior to left in.
Okay, let me see. Such credits shall only be issued when there's not bought. Yes, thank you. The bad part is your spell checking a lot of times doesn't catch that. Thank you. Anything else you find like that, the more eyes that see it, the better off we are. We appreciate it. So that's how we got to where we are. Again, we have reduced, we've gone from an incentive-based landscaping and tree ordinance to more of a, this is the minimum that you have to meet. And there is some incentives for saving a tree and some incentives for water conserving landscaping. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward document. We were asked where this sits in the overall scheme of things. I would say your old ordinance is one of the tougher I'd ever read. This one is probably in the middle, if not a little bit towards lenient compared to other cities. But it's not the most lenient by any stretch, so just to give you a feel for it. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant? If not, I'll open the public hearing. And when we have any speakers, it looks like not. Any other questions for staff? No? Okay, then Mr. Farmer, I'll close the public hearing. You are done, correct? Okay. And I'll entertain a motion to amend select sections of the City of Granbury zoning ordinance per what we've seen tonight in our presentation. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve by Mr. Erdman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Haves. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Farmer, for all your work on that. The next item is going to item F, items for discussion. And Kira is going to go over a monthly plat approval report. As you know, we don't see those anymore. Staff is approving those under most situations, so we ask for an update monthly and then a progress report on the 2023 comp plan. Kira?
Right, thank you. So the first item, the monthly plat report, we can provide this just as a written document for you. If you would like a presentation such as I'm just going to summarize them. I can continue doing that as well. So we approved 4 plats administratively during the course of the last month. The first was located at 2305 Weatherford Highway, and it's called the Haskins Addition. It was not formerly platted, and so it was required to be platted in order to build a one single-family residential dwelling on that property. The next one we have is at 600 West Bridge Street. This is the Decker Gym property. It's that large block. It had been previously platted with multiple lots, and the plat that we approved was to create 2 lots. There's a little bit of a drainage channel that conveniently splits the property, and that's where the dividing line is there. The next one is 4001 De Cordova Ranch Road. This was an existing 2 lots that had been previously platted. The owner desired to combine them into 1 lot. And one of those lots does have an existing house on it. The other one was unimproved. And finally, 1101 Loop 567. This is the Bella Vista single-family residential development. We've seen it was zoned and future land use plan amended. And this was to create 65 single-family residential lots for development of a subdivision.
Kira, I know we looked at that, we had preliminary plats, we looked at Bella Vista before the administrative changes happened. That's to the west, adjacent to Bacchus Elementary, correct? What is the R number on that? Do y'all remember? I was just curious. Was that an R7?
That was an R7 zoning
Thank you.
district with a PD.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions for Kira on any of those items? Thank you for updating us on that.
You're welcome. And F2?
Yes,
I just
please.
want to give you a status report on the comprehensive plan update. We're moving forward with the project. We've provided to the consultant background data that is needed for them to provide materials for an upcoming open house meeting, which is tentatively proposed for April 18th. And that's where that project stands right now. Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
Kira, do you have a time for that meeting?
I think it will be late afternoon to early evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can you repeat that? It was April 18th?
April 18th.
Okay. I just know because I have something that night, but that is a Thursday, just so y'all FYI. Anything else? Staff? Nothing else for us?
Nope, that's
All right,
all.
well, it doesn't look like we have anything else on our agenda. With no further business to attend, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.